So I didn't get an opportunity to see Major when it came to theaters, but I really wanted to check it out. When surfing Netflix today, I found out that it had just arrived on the platform in the US, so I watched it. Should you? In November 2008, an attack was carried out in Mumbai by terrorists. This story tells the account of real-life Major Sandeep Unnikrishnan, a special forces soldier who was instrumental in saving countless lives. So the movie begins right near the end and then flashes way back to when Sandeep was a small kid, so we get to see how he became the man that we see and meet in the opening sequence. I love it when stories give us character development, but when a tale begins so far back into somebody's childhood, it does get me a bit worried that we're either going to get just way too much information, which then makes the story drag, or we're going to get small smatterings that leave a character feeling incomplete. Even though that we've seen a bunch of clips from throughout their life. I loved the way we learn about Sandeep and we get to know him. While we can see him as a young kid, we get just enough to understand his heart and the quality of his integrity. He's kind, and more importantly, he's a just person. He's a good judge of character, and he knows how to read people and situations. Now, the story doesn't spend a ton of time with him as a boy, but then picks up with him again in high school, where we get to see more of just how he's becoming a man. Now, he meets a girl, and I just love the banter and the interactions that they have together. It's flirty, but it's also sweet and even funny. We also get to see Sandeep's relationships with his parents. Now, he's extremely close to his mom, which I think keeps him compassionate and caring. And while his relationship with his dad isn't as demonstrative, there is this huge love and respect that we see. There's a scene where the dad comes into Sandeep's room, and it involves a poster on Sandeep's wall. Now, the interaction between the two, it made me laugh out loud because there was a realness within their awkwardness, and that dynamic was really relatable. All throughout the story, we're being given background on Sandeep by his parents, and I love the way that the story is presented to us. There's this proud tone that comes from them as they talk about him, which I found inspiring. Now, the color tone of these sequences are also easy to tell that they're separate from the actions that their words are describing, because the scenes are they're colder in color and they're slightly desaturated with the contrast then turned up. So it makes them a bit washed out and bright, which is much different than the rich, deep colors that we see throughout the rest of the film. As Sandeep works to become a soldier, there is a wonderfully executed training montage. And these don't always work. Sometimes they come across as cheesy, or they can even just take us out of the narrative. Here, the montage isn't a quick one, but it builds with multiple scenes showing us good progression, which is then all complemented by an energetic and inspiring musical score. There is some slow-mo that's incorporated into these montages, as well as throughout really the movie, but there are other portions where we get to see the action full speed, and I am going to get to that in just a bit. Now, the thing I really appreciate about the montage is that it's also massively building out Sandeep's character. Now, there are moments within this that show his integrity and his heart, which is foreshadowing what type of leader he's going to be based on how he sees people and how he treats others. Now, at about the halfway point in the story, we transition to November 26, 2008. Now, I knew absolutely nothing about the attack on Mumbai. So when this starts unfolding on the screen, my jaw was hanging open at the sheer unbridled brutality that was being unleashed by the terrorists who were attacking all these people. Ruthless, it just doesn't even do the scenes justice. Even in war films, I don't think I've seen something that is so shocking in its savagery. And the cruelty of the terrorists, it just doesn't stop at the street. It continues into the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, where the action then continues to be harrowing. Now, I mentioned the action sequences earlier, and there are some spectacular fights that we get in this. While there is some slow-mo action on screen, there are also a bunch of close-quarter, full-speed, hand-to-hand fights where the camera just spins around the action, so it's not breaking or cutting away, allowing us to see the awesome fight choreography that the actors are executing. I was on the edge of my seat because of the intensity of the entire last half of the film. It piles on the pressure and the tension, and I was feeling a ton of imminent peril for so many of the different characters. But I love through all of this, we get to see Sandeep's humanity. He's driven by honor and the desire to help, but also then he's struggling with the effect that dedication to the army has on his personal relationships. There's real tension that arises because we get to see the internal conflict of a man who's torn between his duty as a soldier and something that he has wanted to be from a very early age, and then that of a son and a husband. That drew me into the story even more than I already was. Now, because the movie begins basically at the end, this is not a happy film, but it certainly is inspiring. There were two distinct times that hit me hard emotionally, and both of them, they came towards the end of the story. There's one scene that harkens back to the training montage, but it was also very reminiscent of one of my favorite scenes, which comes from The Return of the King, where Aragorn tells the hobbits that they bow to no man. I mean, there's something that reminded me of that, and so I did get a couple of tears in my eyes. But then there were some words being spoken by Sandeep's dad that had me full on in tears. I mean, there was no fighting the emotion, and I didn't really even try. I mean, I was so enveloped in the character and his story that it was only natural that I got my man cry on. Now, this is a longer film at 2.5 hours, but I never felt the time. The pacing is carried out very efficiently, never letting the story drag, but also not being afraid to have quieter moments where we see the heart of our characters. So overall, Major is an emotionally inspiring real-life story about a man whose honor and heart shined through in a very dark moment of history. The cinematography is excellent, creating sequences that are not only wonderful to look at, but are also visually enveloping. The acting is captivating, with a lead that's very charismatic, making it easy to picture Sandeep as nothing but a hero. While it is a longer story to tell, it's carried out efficiently and gives a great deal of character development without bogging down the narrative with unnecessary or periphery information that takes away from his account. The use of slow-mo is present, but not overused, and the action sequences are harrowing, frantic, and wildly exciting. This also didn't have any singing or dancing numbers, just a straightforward story that plays out with an effective, dramatic, and touching narrative. I was blown away by the story, and I'm so happy that it's available on Netflix so that I could check it out. Now, I watched the Telugu version, but I read that it was filmed both simultaneously in Telugu, and Hindi, both of which are available on Netflix, as is the Malayalam version. Now, there's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a ton of brutal violence. I give Major 5 out of 5 couches. What's an inspiring drama that you enjoy? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.